Because I'm eating an between.
The room was dimly lit. It was late at night. The children were in bed, and Ken's wife was still up late. I'd been to his home several times at this time of night. She had called again, worried. He was having pain and was uncomfortable. I don't know how many times I'd been to her house at 2 a.m. and how many questions she had asked me, but this was the night she asked, "How much longer? How much longer can he go through this?" I'm going to persuade you today that hospice is a beneficial program and that it is a program that should not be cut by our government. Some of you may not believe in hospice, and some of you may not believe it's an important part of our healthcare system. Some of you may have been affected by hospice before or even had to use it. I'm going to tell both of you why hospice is so important and why it's so important to so many families and so beneficial to our healthcare system. I've worked in healthcare for over 7 years, and I've been with the current hospice agency for 5. I also used research and articles, peer-reviewed articles, to look up statistics for this report that will help show you and support my thesis. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what hospice is, and then I'm going to tell you how hospice saves our government money, and then I'm going to explain to you why the patients need hospice. Hospice is basically compassionate care for dying patients. These patients must have a terminal illness, and we care for them in their homes and facilities when they're dying. Palliative care is an approach to care which improves quality of life of patients and their families facing threatening illnesses. This is a quote from the World Health Organization of exactly what hospice and palliative care is. Hospice provides relief from suffering. Hospice treats the patients holistically and treats the patient physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The patient I spoke about before, Ken, he was only 50 and he was dying from brain cancer. He had 7 young children, all in their teenage to toddler stages. He had severe pain and symptoms that were very hard to control. Hospice is paid for 100% by your Medicare benefit. So for anybody who's worked and paid taxes, they've paid into this hospice benefit. So it's a right to these patients to receive this end-of-life care. I know some of you are thinking that this may seem like a waste of our government's money, and I'll show you how this program actually saves the government money in the long run. Medical costs skyrocket at the end of life, and patients tend to go into the hospital with symptoms at end of life that can be treated in their homes. According to the Journal of Financial Service Professionals, nearly 27% of Medicare's $327 billion is used on care at the final stages of life. 78% of those expenses are used in the final month of care. This means right now, a quarter of Medicare's dollars are being spent on hospitalizing dying patients. My patient Ken didn't want to be hospitalized. He didn't want to go through more treatments. He wanted to be at home and be comfortable and be with his family and die surrounded by his loved ones. This graph shows that of the Medicare budget, 78% of that budget is spent on end-of-life care. Only 1% of that is used for hospice care. So 78% of the budget is used on hospitalizing patients that are dying, or 77%, and 1% of that is used on hospice care to keep those patients comfortable. According to the Journal of Financial Service Professionals, hospice only accounts for 1% of Medicare spending. The costs are higher for end-of-life care when patients are hospitalized compared to caring for them in their homes. If patients were receiving hospice care at the end of life, maybe this would decrease the money Medicare is paying out for end-of-life care. Hospice saves Medicare 50 cents on every dollar being spent for end-of-life care. If more patients were utilizing hospice, maybe Medicare wouldn't be running out of money. Since 80% of people don't know what hospice is, I'd say we have a lot of educating to do. Patients need hospice because, or my next main point is why patients need hospice. And that is, some of you may be thinking that there are times that patients pass away in the hospital with no forewarning. And that is true in some cases, but there are many cases where patients have chronic end-of-life conditions that early referrals could have come onto hospice and prevented those end-stage hospitalizations where no treatment could be provided, and hospitalization is only providing comfort care. Many people believe hospice is only for people who are dying from cancer. This as well is not true. Hospice is for any diagnosis that has a terminal end stage. That could be a cardiac disease, a lung disease, diabetes, or the patient is just failing to thrive due to old age. As the baby boomers age and our population becomes older, the care needed for end-of-life care will increase significantly. According to the International Journal for Human Caring, by 2030, 20% of the U.S. population will be over the age of 65. Many will have an illness, some type of chronic illness that will cause their death. These baby boomers will need increased medical care that we do not currently have the resources to provide. In 2030, the U.S. population over age 65 will look like this graph. 20% of them will be over the age of 65. In 2010, the population that was over 65 was 9.7, so a little more than double. I have provided a brief overview of what hospice is, how hospice saves the government money, and why patients need hospice. Because of hospice, my patient Ken passed away peacefully in his home with his children surrounding him, and he was comfortable and able to slip away into eternity. In response to this speech, I would like everyone to think of one patient that they may be related to or know that could benefit from hospice services. Is their goal to die comfortably and with dignity and in their home? If so, that's the reason hospice exists. One of my favorite lines is by Dame Cicely Saunders. "You matter because you are. You matter to the last moment of your life. We will do all we can not only to help you die peacefully, but to live until you die."